Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Eric Veal with us. He's the CEO and founder at AppsJack. And interesting background, startup coach, also a GTM consultant. So pretty much all
Yeah.
over the place, data engineer, program manager. So yeah, we're going to discuss about his background, lessons that he has for us founders today and CEOs. Started his first business in 96, I believe. So yeah, I rarely see companies or profiles like yours, Eric. You seem quite special there. So eager to jump right into it. Before we do, bookwritegpt.com is presenting that one. So if you want to write a nice book with all your LinkedIn posts, you can do so on bookwritegpt.com. I have a free book token for you, so you can use it there. And yeah, publish a nice AI produced book on Kindle. So Eric, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
Yeah, thank you. No, I've been involved really with startup like things since college, and I'm 47 years old now. I've been full-time out on my own, kind of post-corporate world, just the last couple of years actually. So I'm kind of new as an independent, and prior to that, I have about 8 years of experience working at Microsoft. I worked for Siemens Corporation for about 6 years, and so I'm a mix of kind of like just a corporate warrior and then also an entrepreneur. So I've learned a lot of skills both with startups and startup founding and all that kind of stuff. And like you mentioned, I'm currently a startup coach for a program in Northwest Washington. And so just helping other startups get going and figure out their value proposition and that kind of stuff. And then I'm a mix of a startup person as well as just an enterprise project program manager. So I typically work with large organizations and help them with change management efforts. Like I mentioned, I've worked with large companies. I worked for Tableau software for 5 years, their data analytics company, and my clients there were Walmart and JP Morgan. So working with, Fortune 10 companies on change management and adoption of new technologies like data analytics platforms.
And how could you alternate with such ease between the founder/startup world and the corporate world? Because most of the time, as founders, we have a deep aversion for anything that has to do with corporations and 9 to 5s.
Yeah, it's a trick. I mean, I think just the culture, like what I talk about as far as my startup goes, or really me as an independent entrepreneur, et cetera, salesperson, is that large organizations are messy, small organizations are messy too, and that there's a lot of pretty much bad cultures. And so figuring out how to change culture, whether you're pulling on people kinds of things, and if you're looking external to customers or internal to employees or suppliers, partners, et cetera. So there's that kind of lens. And then I'm a high tech kind of guy too. I mentioned a lot of Microsoft technology throughout my career and other technologies. So I kind of like technology is typically a tool that I'm going to apply. And then the content of the thing, like, is it money and the management of money, like getting clear on how to spend and how to stage your cash flow is one skill. And then like, what's your messaging and or marketing really, but just messaging and helping people get clear on value propositions and that kinds of thing, talk track, elevator pitch, and all that. You need the words to do the change. Roughly speaking, you got to have a clear and compelling message. And then thirdly, it's data and data analytics. It's kind of like none of this works unless you have data science, like data to back it. So I just have a variety of skills across a variety of areas and have been lucky to get to apply that with a lot of large organizations. And so I get to kind of do that on my own now.
And what's your one superpower? Is it an amalgamation of all the skills you mentioned?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely kind of like multifaceted across all areas of business, but it's probably like my real superpower is probably data and data analytics. I've been a relational database person since 1996 or so, so coming up on 30 years of just a nerd who likes to get data clean and get data massaged and working, and then building tools and systems to land more data. And so again, I've been lucky to work with a lot of large organizations that do a lot of that work and want a lot of that work. And so I can kind of come in as, say, like a software engineer who's helping them do whatever kind of thing that they think of as software engineer, but it's basically change management and architecture for like re-engineering their business.
Right. And do you feel that is the inflection point in winning the AI awards, the best quality data, if you can clean it that way?
That's a great question. I agree that it's garbage in, garbage out problem with AI, but I think even if the data were clean for AI, I don't think I have enough faith at this point in every AI tool. You know, there's a lot of junk out there. And so I do agree that it's kind of a constraint that matters of getting your data house in order such that you could use generative AI and similar technologies to make better sense of it and provide better access. But I still think that's, again, just speaking of the pain, you know, getting your data ready for Gen AI is an extremely big pain in the market now. And so I help organizations kind of with the data readiness story before they would choose to expose too much. But I think it's also finding that balance of we got some ready to go now. Let's do that. Let's get more ready to go, and kind of running programs, AI programs for companies.
Do you feel that the corporate structure will survive in this AI age, knowing that it might be a couple of individuals at the top managing armies of agents?
Yeah, I agree with that question. I think it's a great question. I feel like two things is I do a lot of work in manufacturing right now, so it's physical infrastructure. So first of all, I'd say that there's a distinction between information technology and kind of business support services and operational technology. So that's like the stuff that helps factories go and whatnot, or manage fleets of trucks or whatever. So we can't forget that there's physical infrastructure, and I don't really believe that, you know, it's like I don't even know how to talk about it. It's like there's a services industry it's gonna be overtaken by a lot of AI and agents, and it's a support structure for physical infrastructure that we still need across so many industries, right?
Do you feel that Microsoft has stopped innovating in a while, and the best that they can do is just acquire great upstarts like OpenAI?
It's a sacrilegious question. I mean, speaking as somebody that has worked at Microsoft for 8 years, and I've kind of, quite frankly, been a Microsoft fanboy probably since I ever touched it as a kid. And I live near Redmond, and you know, so Microsoft to me has always been a really important company. But I can clearly see the weaknesses that Microsoft has, and there's so many. And I do think that they're a behemoth that is ridiculous in many ways. I think they're innovative in many ways, and they're also risky or problematic in so many other ways. I mean, I'm a regular user of Microsoft Copilot. Like, I could say that the GitHub Copilot works pretty well, and then Copilot on my desktop is either amazingly awesome and it was like, wow, I can't believe that it just did that task for me, or it's a full failure. And so I just think that we're still in the early days of like quality management and continuous improvement for AI, rather than just some race of features and garbage. There's a lot of garbage right now, in my opinion.
Right. And do you feel that most startups go extinct once the founder is not there? And then there's all these corporates that take over the boards, old people that just manage a company so that it's risk averse but very profitable. Is that the life cycle of companies?
Yeah, that's a fair question. I think it's really important to think of the generations, right? Like, what are the 20 somethings or 30 somethings saying and thinking and feeling, and what do they need and want? What's their worldview? That for, you know, a 50 something, like, again, 47 years old. So I'm kind of mid career. I feel like I'm this kind of sandwich generation, right? Where obviously in the middle now, and like there's the old people. I do a lot of work with senior citizens in my local community, and they're a tough bunch. You know, they're bossy and specific and confused about technology in a lot of ways, right? And then, you know, but that connection, I just would say that, again, it's like business is a team sport, and figuring out how to build teams that are cross-generational, like, really does matter. And I'm not so much somebody that wants to like hate on the old people, you know, and like, let's take them out and like this kind of thing. I think there's ways to behave with respect and still bring people along, no matter their age or age group or skill level, etc.
Yeah, they have wisdom, that's for sure, and it's very much worthwhile sitting down with them and asking them great questions, because they live literally like 5, 6, 7 lifetimes, right? Like I lived like 2, 3 lifetimes. I'm 31 now, so yeah, hordes of experience. That if you know how to prompt it right, you will get like very valuable answers. What would you think would be the company of the future? Would it be like a couple of YC hackers piecing something up together? And what do you feel the new skills to build such a company that would be needed in the next couple of years?
Yeah, I think if I'm honest, I'm kind of not this like unicorn Silicon Valley get rich quick kind of guy. I did join that world in Seattle when I first moved there in the year 2000, and I kind of moved there as a 20-something kid, you know, big dreams and ambition and whatnot. And I guess if I'm honest, you know, again, yeah, I see that there's a lot of market opportunity with AI right now, and I got a tour last night from a friend of LM Studio to test all these different AIs and whatnot. And I played with a lot of the tooling, and I think it's neat and exciting, but I still think it's the early days. And I guess, yeah, I don't know. I'm not somebody that likes to really blow smoke at people about get rich quick schemes and that you can just follow the templates and follow the pitch decks and just like implement somebody else's pattern and then you too can do it. So I'm maybe am a little bit of a buzzkill on that topic. I just think it's a lot of hard work, you know, can be a lot of experience. And I think definitely, like, in my opinion, trying to trust your elders and realize or think that they do have your best interests in mind, and learning how to manage up in the generations really does matter. And if you're somebody that can't listen to feedback or can't want feedback, you know, then I just think that you're going to fail. And it doesn't feel good to be a person like that either, that's closed off and you know, too insular with their particular point of view, maybe.
Yeah, I think the problem also with like trusting elders too much is that most, and that's not just elders, but it's amongst all classes of humans. Like most have not been successful, and they've followed like patterns for their full lives. And as soon as you come up with a new idea, they're like, "I didn't live it," so they're afflicted by the same um, mental like deficiencies as most humans. So I'm not too much for that. Like I think most political systems are gerontocracies as well, and they sort of need to be changed. But regarding my last question, if we take like Bill Gates and Paul Allen, right, like they were total nerds, total nerds on geeking out on punch card and just being obsessed. And Bill Gates had that ambition, that testosterone, that vision. I think he brought it to a nice place. Now we have Sam Altman, I guess, with OpenAI, that is the most impressive companies of our era. And I think the model here was just reuniting a bunch of genius in a room, each with their superpowers, right? Sam with the business acumen, Brockman as a COO, and Sutskever as like the very philosophical AGI type of dude, and AI safety and all of that. Do you think that the future will be, yes, okay, mostly agents, we established that, but also with humans honing down on one super skill and reuniting like the best team with all their superpowers, a la Marvel, if you'd like? Would that be like a future behemoth of a company?
Yeah, I understand your point. I think I would agree with the idea that, so like John Cotter from Harvard, he's written a lot of books on urgency and leading change and that kind of stuff. And step 2 of the process is a powerful coalition. And so it might be the case that, you know, we used to Google around and we would never think of getting answers from Google as our coalition or whatever, but it's in this knowledge game. If in your coalition you have, you know, custom GPTs that are doing this and whatnot, I could understand that there's a technology or technological infrastructure side of your coalition that could be these agents and whatnot that do stuff or advise you in certain ways. So I can see how new teams could get created in different powerful ways that aren't purely human. But I'd still argue from a sanity perspective is I'd rather know and talk to Charles Cormier than his robot.
Yeah, but if the robot is like a direct reflection of me, and if I don't know if I can have some rest while my robot is talking, I think also an interesting point is like inject some kind of progress. I think AGI would be able to predict where our brains would go with some time, and I would just inject it like a dosage of my future self, and it would be interesting to see like a better version of Charles aligned with my values, of course, and all of that. Coming back to the getting rich quick scheme, like for example, I think OpenAI, they're the fastest growing company ever, and same with Microsoft. I think they were just one of the companies that added the most value to humanity. So would you agree that like these companies, not all companies for sure, but that
Yeah.
these companies, they accumulated a lot of resources because they added a lot of value to this world?
Yeah, I agree with your point. I think something that I see a lot of startups failing with is like the sales and marketing side of their business. They might be more product focused and more innovation focused and kind of insular, if you will. They have a hypothesis and they have an idea and they're kind of inside. And again, I don't think there's any silver bullet here per se. I'm maybe not answering your question very well, but I think that obviously those, startup companies, again, there's a lot of examples here where companies get rich and then just get bought. Whether Tableau got sold for $17 billion to Salesforce in the year 2017, a lot of people got rich. Some people didn't get rich. Did Tableau really change the world or not? Like, I think in a lot of ways it did really well. And now it just has to find a new life as a product underneath a large company. And so I think we have to remember that there is power here and that there are large organizations that buy up small organizations and that people can get rich by selling to the big tech players, but there is a hierarchy, and I think there's not too many seats at the table to upset the current ones, and they have a ton of strategies obviously to protect their position. So I don't think it's a free for all, never has been.
Right. Yeah, I've heard of Tableau, but never used them. And yeah, it makes me think of an organization that's similar to Salesforce, very successful, but in the end, they serve like big corporations, and most of us never get to even use these. At least as agile people, I think corporations just behave in a league of their own. They seem to be, yeah, not too much on the innovation side of things, but mostly playing the game of business and trying to win it and hack it and just like create as much money as possible. And I think it's nice to make money and give back to their shareholders, but I think most people at the top are too addicted to that game of just winning and just not really adding much value to this world.
Yeah, I hear you. I think that, a point I wanted to make earlier is kind of there's a lot of business to customer, consumer kind of retail style plays. I guess I would think like natively as Disney, for example, it just feels like a very consumer friendly brand, and it's just branded very much as such. Nintendo, kind of sounds similar to me as well, as just like, look, we're not trying to solve the world's problems. We're telling stories and helping people connect through story, and that's kind of fun. Hooray. And then you have serious business types, and that's where I came from, is like Siemens medical ultrasound division and things like that. And so I think there's serious business people out there that are building infrastructure and building systems that can last and sustain and maintain and whatnot. And then large organizations like Siemens, just buy up upstarts. Again, like, so an example here, like Tableau was a tenth the size of Salesforce that bought it for 17 billion. And then Salesforce is a tenth the size of Microsoft, which could pretty much buy anything it wanted to, as long as it was, in a non-compete kind of sense. And they do that all the time. So there is a hierarchy here that matters, and people find niches. And again, I think that's another challenge that startups have, is they're being told by these coaches and maybe like old people, definitely not myself, but other teachers, where it's like, talk about the total addressable market, talk about the blah, 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 but they have no plan whatsoever, right? They're just talking out of their butt with no capability or capacity to actually walk through the phases and steps necessary to get to what they're talking about. And so there is serious business and not just ideas and innovation that come with organizing teams and leading teams and feeling right in the office every day and feeling motivated.
Right. I think companies like Disney and Netflix solve a very interesting and useful problem, which is loneliness, which is depression out there. I think these companies are way more valuable than, let's say, a Salesforce. But coming back to OpenAI, I think they're pretty much useful to everyone. Do you think that AI is being democratized that way, or do you think that some people, it's still too much of a technical challenge to actually use AIs or to break their mental barriers to use technology?
Yeah, I think there's enough quality problems with AIs now that people are skeptical. I mean, I had that conversation with literally some senior citizens yesterday, and they're like, look, the answers that I get from this thing are like wrong half the time. And I think that's just true. I think both Microsoft and Google have done a terrible job of quality control in their release of their new models. And I think it's just frankly embarrassing how bad they've been. I'm more of an engineer, you know, so I'm more like forgiving to this, and I'm playing the long game. And so I just think that there's a ton of power in AI, and that these quality problems will get solved over time, and that they'll get ironed out. And I think it'll become something pretty interesting that can connect a lot of people to a lot of insight and to a lot of value. And, you know, I think it's already happening for sure. So you can watch that side of adoption and whatnot, but I'm positive that there's still a dark side that's not covered by this whatsoever, that is hypothetically covered by AI. But I don't see anything. I don't see any technology as a one size fits all answer to every question. I'm not interested in hypotheses that claim that one thing is the only thing, and I'm not interested.
Right. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's a problem, because most of the time ChatGPT does return good answers. They fix the hallucination problem as well. So I'm not sure, like, yeah, what even is that quality problem, because the litmus on that, if you ask a human, right,
Yeah.
95 to 99% of the time it will be bullshit. If
Yeah.
you compare it to an AI, actually, that is very useful, and most of the time will give you a more nuanced answer, right? Like here would be like 5 answers to your questions, or 10, and you can even ask it like in percentages, what is the percentage of certainty on that point, and so forth. So I'm guessing these elders, they just don't know how to prompt it again, which is a technology use and a technology illiteracy problem that we're facing.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, they're different, right? They see the world differently, and I think, like, I don't think there's any shame on anybody per se for not understanding, or, you know, having a master's degree in information technology, or being a internet architect or something like this. You know, not everybody should need to be like that. And I agree, there's useful commercial off-the-shelf technology now that is AI that can be useful for a variety of applications for everyone. So I totally agree with that. But I think people that build critical information systems that are, you know, mission critical, keeping airplanes in the air, it's anything that's Six Sigma, right? So mine is like, for when a quality bar is extremely high and where the cost of a failure is death or danger, etc. I'm not a pure fanboy of just look at how great it is, and it can tell me, you know, I don't know, George Washington's birthday or something. But, you know, can it keep an airplane flying? At this time, I doubt it.
Yeah, I think the model of ChatGPT was also genius, was to deploy and get data at the same time, right? And that's the YC philosophy, to sort of deploy something that was half baked and bake it under the way. I think they were somewhat successful at this. I don't think it's a life or death matter, ChatGPT, the answers that they will get. And what is the alternative, right? It's Google, which is told it's a shit show. You Google something, you get popped with like 3 fucked up ads, you know.
Yeah.
And then what's another alternative to that? Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter is the apocalypse, you know. Like you go in there and you get all kinds of crap piece of opinions, right? Of like lowly educated people. So I think it's about understanding these technologies and use it. But I think humans will naturally resist these. Humans, they resist change. They love like what they've built, right? They don't want to change it. It worked, and life is very hard. So changing a philosophy, changing a part of your identity, most of the time is quite conflicting. But I think for elderlies, just like calling an AI, because elders tend to be quite lonely, right? And just like having a quick phone call with it and chit-chatting about stuff, learning to use it, right? I think could be an interesting use case for sure. And one problem that we didn't talk about is to not lose the knowledge of elders. I think that's a huge problem, that people pass away without sharing a piece of their brain with humanity and what they learned in this life, right? I think it's a huge problem. How would you solve that one if they're not even using technology?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked me that. So 2 things. One, I'd say, like, I've been workshopping this personal mission statement last week or 2 with a few people, and it's developing quality characters. So developing here I'm a character, you're a character. we have characters. It's something we possess, and we want that to be of higher quality, right? We want to be better humans. And then as engineers, we can literally develop better GPTs or whatever that are also quality characters that, contribute to the fabric of society. So that's been something I've been playing with lately, is just as like a vision or mission statement, is to develop quality characters. And then, I'm literally the president of, live on a little island that has about 750 people on it. I grew up here and my family's been here since the 1940s. And I just recently became the president of the Historical Society on my little island. And so I'm all about the knowledge capture thing. And literally since I joined corporate America in the year 2000, and with things like Y2K, the sky's going to fall, Y2K, we're going to lose everything. Knowledge capture and knowledge management has been a theme in corporate America, at least, and in institutions forever, I'm sure, succession planning and everything else. But that's been something that I've been doing all my life. I'm a huge SharePoint person. Just sorry to drop another Microsoft plug there, but that's pretty useful technology for capturing a lot of things. But Google Docs, Drive and whatnot came around it as well. So much like amazing technology now. And, I think podcasting is really like a great way, frankly, to capture the moment, to capture the transcript, and to do whatever with it. So I can't imagine a more high fidelity way to capture a person than a podcast.
Yeah, fully agree with that.
Yeah.
Where can people find out more about you, Eric?
Yeah, I'm Eric Veal on LinkedIn, ERIC, V as in Victor, EAL. So you can definitely find me there. And then my company is called AppsJack, AppsJack. So that's appsjack.com. And you can find out more about us on the website. Our main methodology is called Smart Now, which is covering these three areas of people, content, and technology. And I'm a kind of a scientist, and I don't think I'm a mad scientist. I'm just kind of having fun with data and organizations helping people change.
That was Eric Veal and Charles Cormier for another